Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. How's it going? I hope you got to listen to last week's episode with production designer Helen Jarvis of Shogun, which is on Hulu. What a fantastic series. It looked amazing. The ending was really good. I'm not going to give anything away. I even had to put out the podcast on Wednesday last week to accommodate the finale last Tuesday night, but I hope you're getting to listen to that. And I should say that this probably starts the beginning of the Emmy FYC interviews, that being a tough show to beat, if I do say so myself, with the show that I worked on, For All Mankind, being in the same category, because period and fantasy are together, which makes no sense, and I am trying to change that. I'm trying. On the Emmys, I should say. And so, and even this week, graphic designer Gina Alessi is a part of a team that recreated the assassination of Lincoln and the story of John Wilkes Booth, and we'll get to talking to her about graphics and things making up so much paper and maps and wallpaper, and yeah, it's a lot. So you'll hear about that in a couple minutes. What do I want to talk about? So I think all of the IATSE locals have settled their individual issues. I know that Local 44 has. And then next they're on to negotiations of healthcare and pension and wages, which is super important. But I don't really know. I feel like I have a lot of friends, decorators, buyers, who get to go to meetings, union meetings, and I will be the first to say I lack in that. I have not been a part of a lot of union meetings, so I missed a lot, but I don't really know what they asked for. And the many people who I have asked, they don't know either. So maybe it'll be a great surprise. I thought it was a good point when they didn't settle in the first week. It took over a week for 44 to settle, and I hope that was because they were fighting so hard for our specific issues of our craft. That's what I hope for. But again, if all of these things are settled and then they go to the basic agreement and then we all have to vote on it and ratify it, and if it's not ratified, then we vote to strike, I guess, and then we strike. I don't know if that becomes before or after. So that's a possibility, apparently. I don't think it's going to happen at this point because I feel like the individual issues and argument that it just went so fast. I feel like everybody just kind of maybe took the deals they thought were good for their craft and left the table. I don't know. That's just my feeling. I am basing this on nothing besides a gut. And then, so the Teamsters might strike. That's the other possibility. So that would really shut down Hollywood again. And that would be in July. Again, I don't know what they're asking for either. I feel like I read a lot of stuff on it, and I can never quite see exactly, everybody wants better pension. Everybody wants better health care. Everybody wants their percentage of wages, but I don't know specifics. I don't know if I missed it somewhere along the way. And I read all of my emails from the union. I feel uninformed, even though I'm a part of this, and I want to support. I'm supporting whatever we do. I just hope it's a good one. Anyway, That's what I wanted to talk about a little bit about. And then let's talk about more fun shit. Is anyone watching part 2 of The Jinx on Max? Because it's not quite as good as part 1 when they, call out all of his Robert Durst's murders and everything. But this is pretty interesting because they just go a little bit deeper, and I don't know, I'm finding it very interesting. Not as great as the first part, I would have to say. But I also, which I had said last week, I really am trying to watch every single Oscar-nominated production design film. So I have a couple that I thought maybe if anyone hasn't seen, they've got some pretty spectacular sets in them. Suddenly Last Summer was nominated in 1959, and it's well, I read the Elizabeth Taylor biography recently, also on Audible. I didn't read it. It was very long. Phenomenal. Liz Taylor's life is so phenomenal. It's crazy. But the film was really good. I thought it was really good, and they think that this woman is crazy. It's a sin. They think this woman is crazy, and she's not. Or she just went through a little hard time, and they're trying to commit her to get some money and some land and everything. It's kind of a sin. But they have this house, and in the backyard of this house, it looks like a New Orleans swamp is in the middle of this house, and Katharine Hepburn lives there, and she rides up and down in an elevator. It's kind of like a little weirdo thing. I don't know. The design is a little off. I don't know where the swamp concept came from, but I thought it was anybody who is designing a swamp in the middle of their set. Take a look at Suddenly Last Summer. I watched Bell, Book, and Candle, which was nominated in 1958. And that is starring James Stewart and Kim Novak and a very young Jack Lemmon, I might say. But the movie's kind of weird. She's a witch and she tries to put him under a spell or something. And I don't know. He's a little older at this point. It's not really working. But his office in this movie is fantastic. It's a mid-century with these really beautiful curved corners and this built-in bookcase above a sofa. It's a really good example of a built-in mid-century if anybody's looking for that. And then this, out of nowhere, 1942, The Magnificent Ambersons, directed by Orson Welles. Never heard of it. It's black and white, and the story was a little all over. It's rich people and nothing goes right for them type thing. But they live in this huge Victorian house, and obviously it's Orson Welles, and so there's these spectacular camera angles. But it's all set in this Ambersons mansion, and it was one of the most elaborate and expensive sets ever built at the time, and reused again and again in other productions. But the dressing is so dense, and they built this 3-story staircase, and the shadows and light that he gets in there, and these shots are just spectacular. And if anyone's looking for millwork to reproduce, my God, I no wonder it was so expensive. I'm assuming this it was probably all real wood at the time. The details on the cornices and the bed, the posts in the staircase, and I was blown away. I kept rewinding it and pausing it and looking at things. Really beautiful. The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. Orson isn't in it. He narrates a little bit, I think. I'm pretty sure of that. But yeah, that's what I have 20 other movies to talk about, but I don't want you to think I'm crazy. So just give me a little bit at a time, because I've definitely been on almost a movie a night type deal with trying to watch all these movies. I don't have a, I don't have a timeline or anything. I just want to watch movies. I just want to watch beautiful things. And so, and I just keep seeing all these great examples of different types of architecture and design in these movies. And if anybody needs examples, they're out there. They are really out there. Should we talk about this episode? What do you think? You want to get to it? Okay, let's go. On this episode, I speak with graphic designer Gina Alessi. Gina has been working in the industry on shows like The OA, American Horror Story Season 10, For All Mankind, Season 3, I missed her, Black Lady Sketch Show, and her most recent work on the Apple Plus limited series Manhunt. On Manhunt, Gina headed up the graphics department that had to reproduce wallpaper, the dozens of antique maps, telegrams, newspapers, custom carpets, hand-bound book props, painted canvases, banners, police wagons, store signage. Every little scrap of paper and painted sign was just delivered by this graphics department. It's a huge undertaking for a period piece for graphics. And so, as I said, Manhunt is a conspiracy thriller about one of the best known but least understood crimes in history, the story of John Wilkes Booth in the aftermath of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. What is also really interesting to me is Gina has her own graphic designer course on her website, and she intends to mentor young designers as they venture toward a career in graphic design and film. It is called A Graphic Designer Made That, hashtag Graphic Designer Made That, and graphicdesignermadethat.com. So I hope you enjoy. She was super sweet. And yeah, enjoy. So are you in LA or Atlanta?
At this moment, I'm in Savannah. I'm technically a member of Local 800 and live there and work there and did the whole deal, but I've bounced around a bit.
Nice.
But LA is home base.
LA is your home base, but you're in Savannah right now working.
At the moment. No, I'm not working. I'm actually going to be heading to Texas for the new show. So it seems like shows are going all over the place these days.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm going to Texas in a couple weeks.
Oh, nice.
To start that. So yeah.
Well, that'll be fun. How long are you going to be there?
Sounds like it's going to be a while, till like October at least.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
Is it Austin?
For a while. No, it's Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know anything about Fort Worth, so have fun. I don't know about that. We have a credit in common For All Mankind.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you work on what season did you work on?
Just the past one, season 4. Just one season.
I did season 3, but I was only on for a short period of time. The primary graphic designer had like a million things on their plate. So I came on and I helped Jamie with props.
Oh yeah, Jamie's great.
Yeah, it was super fun because like I was just doing a bunch of props with him the whole time. So.
Yeah, he's great. He knows his shit.
Yes, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's like a one-man band there. He's like his own little entity, and he's like he kind of schools you on what's going on, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. You can't really contest what he's putting out there, so you just go with it. How'd you get into graphic design?
Graphic design in general, I really got into it as a kid. I had an old iMac computer. Like when I was growing up, they were coming out with all those like crazy, colorful iMacs, and I just fell in love with them. I thought they were so cool. It was like that was my Christmas present. It was like an old iMac and a Photoshop, like burned copy of Photoshop. And I started teaching myself Photoshop through, like, I think I was in middle school at the time, and then started picking up those skills in high school. I was on our high school journalism
Mm.
like we had a newspaper for our school, so I was learning page layouts, and I eventually decided to major in graphic design in college. And the funny thing was, though, is that I actually wanted to work. I wanted to be a filmmaker the whole time. Like I was that kid who was like, I'm gonna make movies. I want to work in movies, and um, it was like that's what I wanted to do. But I was growing graphic design skills
Right.
all throughout my like education, and that's kind of the story I like to tell. Is it's like at a certain point, I thought I had closed the door on film. Like I was like, I'm going to do graphic design. That's going to be my thing. Had no idea that graphic design existed within filmmaking at all. I think a lot of people didn't know that for a while, and it wasn't until I was past college and I discovered Annie Atkins
Mm.
and Grand Budapest Hotel, and that all of that is kind of like
Oh, yeah.
exposed so many people to film graphics, and that's when I realized like I could put my two passions together
Yeah.
and
Isn't that
have it
that the
all work.
best?
Yeah.
The intersection of two passions, and you're like, oh my God, I can actually do this and get paid. This is awesome.
I had no idea. I was like, I when I discovered graphic design for film, I didn't even think twice. I just like basically dropped everything I was doing and was like, I'm going to figure out how to make this my job because it sounded, it was just like what I wanted to do. It was perfect.
Did you then, so you were majoring in graphic design, and then did you move to New York or LA or Atlanta to like do it or?
No, I was born and raised in California,
Mm,
so I was going to college in. I went to Cal State Fullerton, so I was in Orange
nice.
County.
Oh, nice.
So I was kind of like in and around the Los Angeles world, and then I did a short stint after college designing wedding invitations. I worked for like a
Oh,
stationery
beautiful.
company, but even that was kind of a good like I picked up skills there that are relevant to graphic design for film because we are learning about paper and kind of making things and printing, getting things all set up for print because we had our own little print shop at the stationery place I was working at. So it was like I was picking up all the skills I was going to need for this job without even knowing that the job existed. And then once I found out the job existed, I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I'm ready. But yeah, I was in and around the Los Angeles area, and eventually got myself into like LA proper and
and
started
figured it.
figuring out
Yeah.
networking and unions and all that good stuff.
Yeah, once you figure out, oh shit, I have to get into a union to do this and get paid. And you're like, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna work
Yeah,
out. It's gonna take forever. It's
it's
always,
hard.
it's hard. It's really hard. And I
Yeah,
don't even know, like, people will email me or like try to give advice, and I'm like, I don't know how to do it now, but just keep at it. Like, it
yeah,
happens. Like, something will turn. You'll work on something, something will turn. Like, everybody, it just happens. It's a weird
yeah,
magical thing that, like,
yeah.
and
It's
I
like
yeah, I mean, I
you have
tend
to
to,
position yourself.
yeah, you have to be ready for the opportunity. You have
Yeah,
to be prepared. You have to, you kind of have to have a skill or a sense of like this passion that you want to do all this. And um, you have to be ready when called
yeah,
upon. Like, so
yeah.
we all were
I think
ready.
that. So I actually, because it was so hard, coming up into it and navigating the union system and trying to, you know, to do graphic design, that's kind of a skill set that you really need to develop separately, like completely separately from the film world. Graphic design on its own is a skill set that needs to be grown, and you have to learn about design theory and typography and the history of art and printing and how to make logos and like all the different things. And so for graphic designers, it's interesting because you have to build up this skill set that the film industry doesn't teach graphic design. Like that's not what it does.
No,
So you have to build up this separate skill set and then figure out how to take everything you've learned and transplant yourself into the film industry and then also learn everything you need to know about the film industry
right.
and how that works. And that whole process was so challenging to put together that I actually am teaching a course now for graphic designers who have the skills. They've got design degrees. They've been working at branding agencies maybe, or they're recent college grads, and it's been a really really cool experience. Like using actual like organized curriculum
Yeah.
to try and teach people as much as possible. I don't give any guarantees like take this course and you'll automatically for sure get into the film industry, because I don't think anybody can really
No, you can't guarantee anything.
promise.
But
Yeah.
that's actually one of the reasons I when was contacted about talking with you is it interests
Mhm.
me that you are have developed a course to teach graphic design,
Yeah.
because I think it's really important to teach things to better people to be prepared in this industry, because there is so much
Mhm.
learning on the job, and that learning on the job is a part of this. We're all going to learn as we go along, but any sort of course that you can take to prepare yourself for these moments and to be prepared for the next job, I'm all about and
Yeah.
encouraging, and that's one of the reasons I do this podcast, is so that people might learn from it. So I obviously I'm all
Yeah.
about like spreading the word about your course, because I think that's fantastic that you've developed this, and
Yeah.
I think it's anything that promotes industry and growth. I'm all
Thank
about. So
you.
tell
Well,
me.
it's kind of like,
Okay, yeah, tell me
yeah,
more about
sorry.
it.
Yeah, so it's one of the things I teach. I have a whole chapter about it. That learning on the job is, as a film crew person, like you probably know this too, like learning on the job is almost like it kind of is the job in a lot of ways, because we're handed a script and it's not like everything that you're going to have to do and all of the problems you're going to have to solve. So I teach students to try and help ease their anxieties about kind of the scale of what we do. Um, not to worry too much, because I don't think anyone's expecting you to know everything your first day on set. They want to see that you can problem solve. So a lot of what I teach is about problem solving, kind of within the context of making graphics and all of that, and really trying to help students build up their confidence, because I a lot of the feedback I get from people who want to break in is that they feel like it's impossible, like there's not a place for them, it's kind of a pipe dream, like there's no way. And I know I felt that way too. Like
Yeah, me
it's
too.
it's just that the general public, um I think it's cool to be able to be like, no, this is like a job, like with paychecks and healthcare and like lunch breaks and like this is what we do for our living. And um making that more accessible to people and giving training that I feel like, it's not like it's IATSE's fault or anything. Like it takes a lot of, I learned this the hard way, an enormous amount of effort to put together training. Um, Cohesive training that's like systematic and repeatable, a process that somebody could take with them from job to job, even though the jobs are all different. Like
Yeah,
the way I work now is I have this baseline process that is almost the same on every job and kind of helps me figure out the answers we need to figure out in a way that's helps me keep my sanity and helps my coworkers and all of us communicate really well and make sure we're getting all the information, because um, working as a graphic designer for film, it's just there's so much
there's so
so
much.
much that we have to do and so much we have to figure out. And we work with almost, I don't want to say every department, but we work like we're primarily art department, yes, but we really, really do cross paths with so many
Oh
other
yeah,
departments. So
props, set
yeah,
deck, wardrobe. I mean,
even
special
vehicles.
effects.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
vehicles. Yeah,
it's everything from like making little paper tickets for props to designing like interfaces and UI screens for computers. And like if you're on a show with like FBI elements or something like that,
yeah,
you're always doing screens or you're doing playback or you're doing signage. And environmental graphic design is all about signage and storefronts and kind of three-dimensional design. And that on its own in the real world is a whole specialty, like just that one thing. And it's kind of the fun part of the job, but a hard part as well, that you have to be ready to jump into all of these different specialties for like 5 minutes
yeah.
and then jump out and go into a completely different specialty. And um, So
And you have to be
teaching
quick because
students.
things change on set and they don't want this poster to be vertical right now. They want it to be horizontal because of the shot. So can you quickly
Yeah.
make that, horizontal and it's in 20 minutes. So cool.
Yeah. And then you can start coming up with like, especially for set deck gap and stuff, like
Yeah,
I'll try to just
I'm always asking for top
I'll
papers
try to
and
make
all that.
I'll try to make like when I'm making a bunch of posters or something that's going to be set dressing, like I at this point kind of try to anticipate as many potential scenarios as possible while I'm setting things up. So I'll like maybe I will make the poster, but I go, hey, I'm going to throw in a small version just in case and a
Yeah.
sideways version just in case. And like I on Manhunt, we had three graphic designers, and in the 1860s there was posters everywhere. Like, wheat
Yeah.
paste. That's how they advertised everything. And we came up with a term. I don't know if I coined the term. I like to think I coined the term, but the term we used was GAC packs. So basically, we would make themed packets of just GAC. And whenever we had a new set and it was like, oh, we need a bunch of Civil War recruitment posters, we had like the GAC pack and we would just run it to print because we had
Nice.
pre-set it all up.
Oh, that's nice.
That was one of our life-saving techniques to get through the volume of
That's
graphics that we
smart.
had was trying to get as much done in like packets and templates and ready to go a la carte, like you know
You never
resources
throw
just
anything. I
pull
mean,
from.
even I've worked with this one designer like over and over again on shows, and I'm always like, "Hey, remember that from this? Like, can you just we should just do that and like can you tweak it and like can you like cuz you just bring up just things that work from before and you're like, "Yeah, I really liked how you did that. Can we just do that again?" And like
Yeah.
or like you were saying like pretty much every time I do offices or everything, he knows like, oh, we're gonna do diplomas and top sheets and like anything's called out in the script or like him and Graham Radcliffe and I've worked together so much. He kind of knows what I need as like set deck, like business cards and like any little post-its and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah,
And that's nice too,
so
like
much.
if there's any newcomers listening to this podcast who get overwhelmed thinking about all of that stuff, because I know that has been me before. Like you do kind of get this once you've been around a while, you kind of start to understand preemptively like what's probably going to be needed. So you read a script and like you said, and it's an office and you're like, all right, I'm going to get ready for a bulletin board.
Yeah,
I'm going to get ready for, all those things you just mentioned. Or, you know, next time if I do another 1860 show, for example, I'm going to be like, all right, well, I know we're going to need a bunch of posters and I know I'm going to have to probably be prepared for, we did a lot
yeah,
of wallpaper and we did lots of tickets and newspapers and telegrams and things. And it's kind of cool that each show you learn so much about
yeah.
a topic in a time period. And film, especially I feel like art department people have this bizarre knowledge bank of like
Oh, the
all of
research.
these different.
Yeah, the research that we all do is tremendous, and we become experts in so many different topics in our lives. It's crazy. And I'm
Yeah,
sure for Manhunt and Abraham Lincoln and John Wilkes Booth and that period, you had to research the fonts and the type of paper and the
yeah,
paragraphs and the type and everything like that. Um,
yeah.
can you talk a bit about I I don't know why I was thinking like was there any copyright or anything? There wasn't anything back then that you had to like deal with, right? There wasn't anything you didn't
For
have
like text.
like you didn't have to deal with anything of like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble for using that,
Oh, that was one of the great things about
right?
Manhunt because it's 1860s,
Yeah, you could
so
use
so
everything.
much of our reference material is public domain,
Right.
and so that meant in a pinch, we could go on like Library of Congress is a great resource and find like old newspaper scans or old photographs. We could go New York Public Library is another awesome. They
Right.
have like
Right.
a digital collections page, and we still run everything through clearance just to be sure. But typically it made like making newspapers was so much easier. Which going into it at first, I was like, oh God, there's going to be so many newspapers. And newspapers are one of those things that people, non graphics people, I think they don't really realize how much work
It's
they
a
are.
lot. It's a
So
lot of
an
text in there.
incredible amount of work.
Yeah.
But it actually, our graphic designer, David Towsley, who ended up doing most of our prop newspapers, he was able to go and collect real articles and pieces of actual, we had a newspapers.com subscription, so we could download public domain newspaper images and kind of reconfigure them.
Oh,
And then we would just focus on our hero text, which we would get the hero text from the writers.
mm.
Um, and we plugged that in.
No, lucky you.
Headlines and all that. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't.
So that yeah. Sometimes you don't. Usually if it's hero, like if it's the thing that the camera is going to be focusing on.
But then the the mid sections, like you don't. Like people people might think like, oh, someone told you all to do that, but like a lot of times you don't. Like it's you coming up with that, or the designer, giving suggestions and everything, but it's you coming up with that. It's a lot.
Yeah, working on more contemporary shows, like shows set in the 70s, 80s, 90s, like there's still a lot of newspapers in those, but articles and newspapers from that time period are not public domain because they're too recent. So yeah, it's like maybe you get 2 paragraphs from the writers for the hero part, and everything else is like our department gets to figure it out.
No, you guys could just make that up, and you're like, oh, can we? Okay, cool, thanks. There goes my weekend.
I've gotten articles, like our art department coordinator will be sitting there like, I think it's kind of a fun project sometimes, because they get to sit there and write up all sorts of funny little articles and things. And I've definitely written my fair share of fake news articles.
Yeah.
So my journalism experience came in handy.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
And also maps. I mean, on that project, the maps and her book. I mean, I only had the first 4 episodes, but I know the books and the maps that they had. You were making up all of those. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. So
to be historic.
So the maps, there's so many maps. So what we did pull a lot of the maps from Library of Congress. We scoured their site and got a huge collection. So a lot of the maps that you see are actual historical, like period accurate maps that maybe we like cleaned them up and stuff, and we set them up for print, and we had to make sure they were all getting printed and put on set. But there was one project that the graphics department did, the 3 of us. It was me, David Towsley, and Sarah Stimson were our 3 graphic designers. And we call it the map wall. So in the War Department set, which is the big Civil War Union headquarters.
Beautiful set.
There's this one, thank you, Chloe Arbiter, production designer. That's like her, like.
And Lisa Alcover is a decorator.
Yes, Lisa.
Yeah.
That set, that whole set.
It's beautiful.
I got to walk it. It transports you. But we had this wall of maps, and Chloe, the production designer, she knew we were so busy. So it was, I really appreciate her on this one, because it was really something she wanted to see, was this big collage of like Civil War strategy maps, kind of all different textures, all different shapes and sizes, different colored papers. She wanted it to look like different map makers over the period of the Civil War kept adding strategy, battle plans, whatever, to this wall of maps. But when you stand back and look at the whole thing, it is a full map of the United States, just built in different layers of paper. And that was kind of how she pitched it to us. And Chloe and I have worked together for a long time, and I told her we were really cranking so many graphics out for the War Department, and trying to make everything as special as possible. And the map wall was the one thing where I was like, Chloe, I want to do everything, but I do think there might be a chance that we might not be able to pull this one off. And that's such a hard thing to say as a film person, because it's like we always try our best. But that was the thing for me where I was like, I'm just not sure. And to her credit, she's an amazing manager, and was like, I totally understand. Like, I'll take what we can get. Like, even if we have to reuse other maps that we've printed for other stuff, like I'll take what I can get. And it was almost like she said that, and I was like, I went to our other graphic designers, And I was like, okay, guys, can we analyze our workload? Like, where are we at? What do we got? Can we pull this off? Because I just really want to. Like, I would really love to make it happen. And the two of them are incredible teammates. And they were like, let's do it. Let's do it. So for that, we found this antique map that was split into a bunch of sheets. And I assigned between the three of us, I broke up different assignments. Like Sarah, you're going to do sheets 1 through 10. David's going to do sheets 10 through 15, whatever. We broke up the assignments and we retraced every single sheet in different styles so that it would look like different map makers of different times had drawn the different pieces. Because that's just not something you can just pull stuff off of a site and have it work for the creative goal. So that you'll see it sometimes. It's like a giant tall wall of just maps collaged all over. And that was the graphics teams. It took us like 2 or 3 weeks to finish all of them while keeping up with like all the other, daily stuff that we were doing.
Yeah, it's not like that's the only thing you had to do.
Yeah, we're talking about one room in one gigantic set.
Right.
And I think our supervising art director, John Bell, said that he counted like 75 sets in like the first episode or so.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It was crazy. It was a lot.
No, they just keep walking. Like they just kept walking through set, through houses, and like all through like and exteriors, and they're outside and they're on horses, and then they're inside and they're in the theater, and they're like, yeah, it was.
And there's parades, every single canvas banner with like victory, victory. That was the graphic designers. We were mocking all that up. We had this huge paint department that was painting everything, like every hand painted sign. We would, the graphics team would mock it up, figure out the paint colors, figure out the dimensions, the typography and everything, and hand it off to the painters, and they're painting all of it. And it was like incredible.
But even the signs on the like when you look down the streets and the signs on the, the all of the buildings, that type, and like even the signs hanging in the windows and the storefronts and all of that has to be designed.
Yeah. Three people.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
How much prep did you have? What was the prep?
Let's see. I started the end of March that year. This was 2022. I'm trying to remember because we pushed a couple times. So let's see. April, May. I think we only had like 2 or 3 months, maybe. It was a lot. Like the other art department, like our production designer, she started before me, but I didn't start. It was kind of crazy because when I started, my first day, my very, very first day, and this is a set deck story, Lisa, she came in and she's like, okay, good. I'm so glad you're here.
Here's
we're like
30 things I need.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I haven't even read the scripts yet. And she's like, all right, but here's the thing is I need you to design the blanket that Abraham Lincoln died on. It's very important. And I was like, oh yes, that is really important.
A little bit.
And it was like day one of the show is I was like trying to figure out the Wi-Fi password, setting up my email account, and oh yes, designing the blanket that Lincoln died on because the
gotta get it made.
The fabrication vendor needed it by that Friday. Like, ooh, all right. And that was a really, really cool set deck project because Lisa, she kind of filled me in really quickly on the research they had already done for the blankets. We had a draper, Joel Claff. So like he's first of all so good at his job.
Yeah, the drapery was fantastic.
He's so nice. He's so passionate about fabric and colors. Like he would come into my office and just be like, Gina, look at this piece of fabric I found. Isn't it beautiful? And I was like, it is beautiful, Joel. And he's like, that's all I wanted to tell you. I just think it's so beautiful. And he'd walk away. And it's just nice and refreshing to meet people who are so in love with their craft.
Oh yeah.
He helped us with the blanket too, because it was so, Lisa had the bed picked out and we had to figure out the dimensions that this blanket needed to be to cover the bed. And it was too big for our vendor. So we had to produce it in multiple pieces. And then the draper had to sew it all together. So it was like even
Oh
just
man.
one blanket, it was a huge process. And I had to custom draw the pattern to try and be as historically accurate as we could be. And we had like one reference photo because it's from the 1860s.
Oh my God.
There's not a lot of reference images. So that was a really probably my proudest one of my proudest projects from the show, and it was like thrown right into it on day one.
That's an amazing detail to have.
And I have it to show you.
Oh my God,
They let me
yes.
keep it. Oh, it's very big, but let's see.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, we it it's like all of this pattern I had to draw on my iPad basically.
Oh my goodness.
And
It's like
we
a
sent it out
floral,
to
but
a
with like geometric on the side.
yeah. It had this like big beautiful floral center, like a circle, and then this triangular grid pattern that almost feels really contemporary, like
Yeah.
in a way, but that's what the reference photos had. A big field of like triangles, and then the border was back to like grapevines. It was like grapevines and abstract little floral elements and things like that, berries and
That's
yeah,
incredible.
it was really cool.
And then you had to also recreate wallpaper for the time
Yes.
and design all that
So,
too. Oh my God.
yeah, it was so the wallpaper was a whole thing. And I had actually in my head, like we call it surface pattern design. So that's textiles, wallpapers, patterns, and things like that. Tapestries. I in my head I consider that sort of like advanced film graphics. They tend to be on bigger projects. You start running into stuff like that because they're so expensive to produce
Yeah.
custom
To print all the
textiles and
wallpaper
wallpaper.
is like a lot.
So this for me, Manhunt was my first show doing wallpaper at all. Like even like I like to say like I had very little experience with wallpaper. Like I've never put it up in my house. I've never like been to a wallpaper store. It was just like it was so new. And that was the other thing. My first week, they were like, okay, also we need like 50 wallpaper patterns. So what we ended up doing was a really cool process that one, it helped me learn more about how to make wallpapers because it's the first time I'd ever done it. And it allowed us to have a big diversity in wallpaper and also move through all of that really efficiently. So what we did was we found a site where we could license images, and they happened to have scrap, like scans of antique scrap wallpaper
Oh
of
wow.
little bits and pieces, high res. And so we found all of the images available on this stock site and made a catalog for Chloe, and she could say, for for the White House bedroom or whatever, I want this pattern. But then the graphics team would have to restore the pattern a little bit because they were actual antique scans. And we would, so we would go in, and if there was a big crack through the paper, we had to like paint it out in Photoshop and make sure the colors were saturated. Sometimes we would change the colors for the color palette and we basically I called it wallpaper resurrecting because we were taking these actual antique patterns and bringing them back to life and preparing them to be manufactured on a scale that we could apply them to all of our locations.
Right.
And so it was a mix of doing that. It was a mix of we found a few vendors that make antique style wallpaper still, so we would use those in some rooms. Chloe would pick those, and then a handful of wallpapers that were like really special. We custom made like that. We drew the pattern from scratch basically and
Can I
made it
ask
custom.
about
So that
one?
was
I'm gonna share my
yeah,
screen to see if I can share my screen. Can I do this?
yeah.
I'm like really bad at that. Can
I
you
see
see
it.
that one?
Oh yes,
That one there
yeah,
really caught my eye.
yeah. So that one is one of the ones that we was an antique pattern scrap that we licensed the scan of the
Mm.
scrap. We restored it, we tiled it out, and that was the hallway of the Peterson house where Lincoln died. Um,
I like
and
stopped this show and like got up close to my TV because I'm like, what is that design?
I
It's
wonder.
beautiful. And it's so
I'll have
it's
to
like
send you.
it almost looks mid-century to me. Like it's I don't know,
Yeah,
it's like is that like a Christmas tree? Is that like an angel? Like what is that?
I don't
It's
remember.
like
I'll
so
have to look at. I'll send you after
it was so
an image
pretty.
of what it is.
Yeah.
That one in particular. First of all, people have to get it out of their heads that the past was sepia toned because like this is a
Oh
common
yeah,
thing with like
no.
art
Yeah.
department work. Because like people, we in 2024 see the past through a sepia filter because we're only looking at these photos, and that's the only technology they had at the time to document images, and they're black and white or sepia tone or whatever. But the research we were finding when we really started digging deep, the colors were wild. Like that particular one, I think there was like gold next to teal, or like it had
Yeah.
like some crazy colors in there, and some of the patterns were just like, I was like, people put this in there. This is awesome. But it was cool. So that was one of our antique restorations, and then on that same set there were two other wallpapers that, and those were ones that we custom did. So the room where Lincoln died, the vertical stripe wallpaper in the background is custom, completely custom, trying to match the historical references as closely as possible. And the War Department, it's called the Telegraph Room. So anytime all the dudes are in that big dark blue room and they're like reading telegrams and
All
sharing
right.
news, and there's like this dark blue starry like wallpaper pattern.
Oh right.
That's a custom one as well, and
They're
it's a
beautiful.
very simple pattern.
Beautiful.
It's a very simple pattern, but we spent so much time getting that blue like just right.
Because it's very
We tried
deep. It's
like,
a very deep blue.
it's very.
Yeah, like an indigo or
We were worried. We were worried, because like it's a lot of candlelight and natural light in this
yeah.
time period, and it's like we wanted it to be. Chloe wanted it to be different. The whole War Department is like layers of blue tones. So
It
some rooms
would.
are a little lighter, some are darker. Um, so we had to test that particular blue a lot because she wanted it to be dark, but not like so dark that it just becomes a black pit
Right, right. Yeah.
on camera. Like, so we tested it, that particular one, a ton. And I do really like how it
Yeah.
turned out
It's
because it's
beautiful.
yeah,
What
it's fun.
what do you think was the biggest challenge graphically on the show?
Um, I think overall it was just the quantity. Like I'm sure there's certain
Right.
specific projects where I could say this particular project was really hard, but it was the overall, just the scale of the show was so big, and I think that uh, people can be surprised how many graphics are required just on any show, but especially like a show like this set in the 1800s. um, we even had somebody say like, I don't under you need wait, because I was asking for more graphic designers, like more, I need
Right.
more.
Right.
And somebody was like, I don't understand, like there's no graphic design in the 1800s, and you're like,
Yeah.
not the way you know it now, but there's like, where are you going to get all of your antique signage from? Like
Yeah,
somebody has to
there
make that.
is, and you can't just get it. Like you have
Yeah.
to you have to make all of it. And it's not like you're shooting in LA and there might be some sort of stockpile or somewhere. Like you don't have a plethora of it sitting around. Like
And if it needs to be custom, like it
yeah.
couldn't just, there's Ford's Theater is famous, and next to Ford's Theater was Star Saloon. And like, this is a historically known thing. You can't just go rent a Star Saloon
Yeah.
sign. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
So, so definitely a challenge was this just sheer quantity of stuff to produce at a very high level because we wanted the production value to be
Yeah.
really high. And the team that we had assembled, we all hold ourselves to a very high standard. And like, so that was a challenge, but it taught me a lot too about, you know, I like to focus a lot on project management, especially teaching the course and everything, like teaching graphic designers how to keep all of this organized because it is such an immense workload. Um, so working on a show like Manhunt helped me get better at that. It helped me get better at advocating for myself and kind of, having good conversations with my art directors about deadlines and our capabilities and just acting in the lead. I've never led a team of multiple graphic designers before. It's not very common to get multiple graphic designers on a show. And if you do, sometimes they're piecemeal or like they're only on
They're
for
only
a little
brought in
bit of
for a
a month.
week or yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is something that I hope will someday change because truthfully, like I said, it's almost every single show now. It's just the amount of things that graphic designers get asked to make is increasing because the technology to print and fabricate all of this stuff is improving.
Yeah.
So the more capabilities we have, the more we get asked to make, which means the more labor we're going to need. Um, but so I advocate for that a lot. Like more graphic designers. One,
Yeah.
I'm on when you're on a show and there's 5 set designers, 4 art directors, like a whole set deck team, a whole props team, a whole like you know multiple art PAs, multiple coordinators, and one graphic designer. You're like,
Yeah.
I
No.
think we need to adjust this number a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So it was unique that we had 3 graphic designers for a very long time, almost run of show.
That's great.
I was by myself for like a month or so, and then we got
Oh,
the 2
that's right.
additionals on. So it was kind of like the biggest challenge, but the best thing, the best part, because the graphics team was very they were just great. It was so great to have other peers and like that supportive. And it allowed us to do things like pull off the map wall because
You
having
can't
the
do it
extra
yourself.
support.
And it's
Yeah,
time and money and it's, prepping that and the research that goes into that and it's, the time of the research and the time of production and the time to age
yeah.
it and the time to apply it.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
it was great because we got to divide our workload up by specialty. So we kind of figured out like
mm,
David was really good at calligraphy. So when a telegram prop or a letter or something like that came in, we were like, go straight to David. He's the calligraphy guy.
nice. Yeah.
Sarah
Your
Stinson was
strength.
really
Yeah.
good at digital painting. So she did all the like custom portraits of like our actors,
Mm,
to look like they've been painted in the White
yeah.
House and things like that. That was her specialty. So it's cool to have support like that.
Do you like doing historical or modern or futuristic? Like what do you prefer?
Yeah. I know a lot of people, a lot of graphic designers specifically, only want to do period stuff. Um, I've kind of like the diversity. I like learning about new things. So Manhunt was really cool, and like doing a Victorian era show was on my wish list for a really long time.
Mm,
And but I've also worked on like other eras, like the 1980s, um, mid-century stuff. I haven't done a lot of like super futuristic. I did For All Mankind, which was like it was like alternate reality
yeah.
space, but that was kind of their own special thing. But I don't know. I kind of like everything. Like the show I'm on right now is modern day military. It's like a military show, and even within that, like studying our own world today, what's out there, like it's still been really fun. And so I'm different, but I kind of just give me the project and I'll,
And to run with it.
you know run with it. But I still haven't done like a really like everything I've done has been really realistic, like really trying to emulate reality. But I think it would be fun to do something that was sort of like we're kind of inventing a world
Mm.
more. So I've done like little bits of that, but not like a whole like Hello Tomorrow. Have you seen
Yeah, oh
that
God, I
show?
love that. Yes.
So like obviously there's like references to real world design, but like it's also really inventive and interesting.
Yeah.
And
Oh, season
it would be
two.
fun to do something like
I don't
that.
know if they're doing a season two. I gotta ask her. I don't know.
It was so
I
fun.
hope so. What programs do you use mostly? Just Photoshop
It's
and
all
Illustrator or
Adobe. So
Adobe?
I think we use it. I would say we probably use Illustrator the most, and it depends on the designer. Maybe it's Photoshop, but the way the Adobe programs are set up is they're kind of each one of them is meant to be used for certain types of things. So it just depends on the project, which program you decide to use most. But you can also use Photoshop and Illustrator together to achieve an end result. But those two programs will be like the main two, I think.
I used to know Photoshop. Now I feel like I could probably find my way around it if I had to, or Illustrator, and now, but I haven't opened them up in a very long time, so.
They have added lots of new features.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which some of them are like, oh, this is a really great feature, and other times I'm like, I feel like I'm aging because I'm like, stop changing things.
Yeah.
Like, I can't find this tool anymore.
Yeah. Where's my favorite button?
It keeps like reorganizing the screen, and I find myself like squinting at the screen, like, I don't know.
So your course can be found on your website.
Yeah, it actually has its own website, so it's
It has your
www.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, www.agdmadethat.com. So it stands for A Graphic Designer Made That, which is it's like a little reference to the day that I discovered graphic design for film, because I
think it's
just hanging out. Yeah, I was hanging out with some friends. I was watching Grand Budapest Hotel. Like, this whole world was not on my radar at all. We were just like hanging out watching a movie. I wasn't even thinking about filmmaking. I was just hanging out. And the Mendel's pastry box that everyone knows now, that pink pastry box, and there's the scene where they like untie it, and it like unfolds in a really special way. And for some reason, seeing that, I had just taken a packaging design class at Pasadena Art Center, like a summer course, and it just clicked. Something about seeing it in the movie and having taken that class and realizing that these are the same skill sets, it clicked for me. And I paused the movie and I turned to my friends and I was like, you guys, a graphic designer made that? And they were like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I think a graphic designer made that. And that was like what kicked off my career. So I named my training, I named my little online school after that. After that moment, because it was really special.
I would have to say too, kudos, your website is super cute.
Oh, thank you.
Feels like you're at school.
I tried.
Yeah.
Like binder paper.
Yeah. It's like the notebook pages, and like it's very easy to use, and so obviously made by a very good graphic designer, very
Thank you.
easy to navigate. So I would definitely encourage anyone interested in graphic design to check it out, because it sounds like a wonderful course to get you started and give you some skills if you're interested in graphic design. Which I say to Graham all the time, I'm like, I wish I could just sit here and pump out graphics all day. I wish. Me and my little Canva account, I wish I could just do that. Like,
I do feel like we're lucky. Sometimes I'll say that I think that graphics is one of the most fun positions in the art department.
I do too. I love the
It's not
graphics.
like any easier than anyone else's job, but it's just like, it's just fun. And yeah, the course too, another big thing that I wanted to do is help newbies understand the film industry, and help them understand what this career is all about, what the lifestyle is all about, because it is a huge commitment to go down this path and to try and gain union membership. And I'm not the kind of person who will tell kids, like, or not kids, but young designers, oh, don't bother. It's too hard. It's too stressful. Just give up. But I do like to tell them, hey, if this is a career you're interested in, it's really exciting. It's really inspiring. But also, like, before you get too far into it, let's talk about the realities of like what it's going to look like. So I try to provide a lot of really honest information that is not designed to scare anyone or discourage anyone at all. It's designed to help them make good decisions for themselves and their career paths and their lives, because um, film work is a job, but it's a lifestyle, really. Like,
Yeah.
So I didn't have access to that information getting started, and it was part of why it was so hard to kind of transition into this lifestyle, because I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. So I do a lot of coaching and trying to help
That's
people
awesome.
get past their fears, but also have a really realistic perspective. So my goal is that their first day on set or in the office or whatever, as a PA or as a graphics person, they're like, all right, I don't know everything, but I know what to expect, and I'm not scared, and I know that I can do this. And that's, that's kind of my goal.
That's fantastic advice, and that's key to knowing and getting into this, is that it's not all like creating, the Grand Budapest Hotel either.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of little things too, and a lot of things
A lot
that
of
aren't,
cars.
yeah, a lot of things that
Make
aren't
a
so
lot of cop
exciting,
cars.
and then a lot of things that are super cool. Like
Yeah.
not so cool, super cool. But
Yeah.
if it's fulfilling, then it's awesome. And that's why we're all here. So, yeah, the passion and the
Yeah.
love, and yeah. And you've worked on some great projects, and I'm so happy that I got to talk to you and promote this class, because I think it's awesome. So thank
Yay, thank
you.
you. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I'm sure
I
our,
really
our
appreciate it.
I'm sure our paths will cross. I hope.
Yes, I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope so.
This was great. And
Well,
the show looks fantastic. Congrats. And yeah, great job.
As I said, I really do daydream sometimes of just sitting behind the desk and doing some graphics. And I like it. I like playing around with fonts and colors and shapes and researching old fonts and things. It's a whole nother world of research that is in our department that is so crucial to making these sets look real. So I always closely work with the graphic designer for things that I need, and appreciative when they pull it off. So yeah, thank you, Gina, for talking about it. And I think that course is great. I think her trying to develop and has developed, a course for people that is kind of like an unsung hero in the art department. So congrats on that, girl. Again, it is a graphic designer made that.com. Actually, it's agdmadethat.com, I should say. So check it out. And yeah. So what do we got coming up? Oh my gosh, I have so much good stuff. It's crazy. I'm not sure if I can get one together for next week in editing, so it might be a film study next week. You might luck out, but I don't even think I can give up a week. I have so many interviews booked. Michael Nolan is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I just watched on Amazon, and that is a good time. If you liked the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, check out this series on Amazon. The contemporary design is fantastic, and they're in New York City, they're in Italy. It's a whirlwind of location work. And then I have Glenda Ravallo, who is the production designer of Frasier. That's exciting. Michael Weiland, who is the production designer of Airbender on Netflix. Fantastical series. And, coming up, I have, as I said, Kim Leonard, the set decorator of Griselda. And then Kirsten Mann, who is the costume designer of Loot. So yeah, I've got too many. You're gonna start getting 2 a week. That's how great this is gonna be. So get ready. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Monop for Decorating Pages.